Welcome to the Transformational Storyteller instructional video. I am so excited and so grateful that you're joining me today. The stories that we tell ourselves really do determine the life that we have lived and the lives that we are moving into. And so in terms of what you can expect from this 3-part course, we're going to be talking about first awareness and how you came to create the stories that you're currently telling yourselves, and how those stories are maybe limiting some of your progress in your life. And then we're going to be moving into acceptance so that you can really take an empowered look at where you are and how you got there, and let go of what isn't serving you so that you can move forward into the last phase, which will be action and creating the vision for the life that you want to live, and then being able to move forward with determination, power, and a sense of freedom. I would encourage you to do the videos, one at a time. Give yourself a little bit of time, whether it's a day or a few days in between the segments, so that you can really begin to internalize some of the lessons, embed them in yourself, and know that you can go back at any time. So, this sequence will work on any of the self-limiting stories that are keeping you stuck, and you can do them once, you can do them 10 times, but if you really practice the tools and the skill set that I'm going to outline for you, you will be able to live a life that is beyond what you're living now, and possibly even beyond your wildest dreams. So let's get started with the first step of the first video, which is all about becoming aware of the stories that you're currently telling yourself, how you came to tell yourself those stories, how maybe they worked for you in the past, and how they're no longer working for you. So I'm going to ask you to, if you need to pause this video, feel free to pause this video, but I want you to get something that you can write with and something that you can write on. So whether it be a journal or a piece of paper and a pen, and just take a moment with that journal and that piece of paper, and right at the top of that, what is my defining self-limiting story? What is my defining self-limiting story? And some examples of what those stories have been for people or can be for people, just so that you can kind of see what we're about to get into, is, if you've had a traumatic event in your life, like maybe, an instance of sexual abuse, or a health issue, or the death of a loved one, something that happened in your past that really created a set of beliefs inside of you that is getting in the way of your forward progress, or has gotten in the way of your forward progress in the past. So I want you to just take a moment, take a deep breath, reflect on what your self-limiting story could be, where it could have come from, and just give that a label and write that label at the top of the page. So, whether it was my traumatic accident, or the time I was sexually abused, or, whatever it might be, this is all about just becoming aware of that moment in your past. And many people have a lot of moments, but I'm just going to ask you to start with one. There is no right answer. There's only your answer in this moment. And just start with that one story. And this part of the video is all about becoming aware. Just becoming aware of how your stories came to be, and then becoming aware of what your past is costing you in the present. And so I just want to give a little example to see so that you can look at how that might be playing out in your life. And you don't have to write this down, you just have to have written your title. But so, for example, something that was holding me back in the past was I was sexually abused as a child. And so, I often had a lot of body shame and body hatred, and that manifested itself in all sorts of different ways, acting out sexually, self-judgment, body dysmorphia, which, for those of you who might not be aware, like not seeing myself or my body accurately. I had an eating disorder for many years. So, if I were doing this this exercise, I might write down at the top of my page, sexual abuse as a child. So once you're clear on what that event is that's holding you back, I'm gonna give you an instruction, and then I'm gonna ask you to pause the video for a moment and go inward. And so the instruction is, I want you to write for maybe about 5 or 10 minutes on everything that you can remember about that experience, everything that you can remember about what happened in the past, that moment that you defined for yourself. What happened? Who was there? What was going on? How you felt? What you were thinking? And I really want you to kind of go back to that moment in time and what was coming up for you and what you experienced at that time. And I know, especially if you're delving into a traumatic incident from your past, I just want to encourage you maybe to keep yourself safe as you're doing this exercise. So you don't necessarily need to relive it in a visceral way, but just to get intellectually clear on what was going on and and what you made it mean at the time that it was happening. And so I'm going to ask you to just pause the video in a moment and give yourself about 5 or 10 minutes to write, just free write. Whatever comes up about the incident is exactly what's meant to come up. And really, you're focusing on awareness. So you don't need to change anything. You don't need to rewrite history. You just want to take the time to become conscious to and present to what was happening in the past. So yeah, pause the video and I'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back. I hope that you were able to delve into some of the details of your past and get a little bit of clarity, because that's really what this first part of this first video is about, is just becoming aware, getting clear. And so I'm going to invite you now to, just having written what you wrote about where you've been and what from your past might be holding you back, I want you to just look at that and see if you can identify a belief that you took out of that situation, a belief about yourself or the world that might be getting in your way still today. So for example, when I shared about having been sexually abused, and if I was going to do this, I would, sexual abuse would be what I maybe wrote about. A belief that I took away from that instance was that it was not safe to be in my body and that my body had betrayed me. So that was something that I took out of that I carried with me for years and years and years, which partly explains the eating disorder, which explains, why I didn't really value my body as a temple. And that belief came directly out of the experiences in my past. And so I'm going to invite you now to just take a moment and see if you can identify a belief, maybe 1, maybe 2, no more than 3 certainly, but a belief about yourself that you took out of this experience from your past. And I want you to focus on a self-limiting belief. So, you could also have taken the belief that you're resilient or that you're strong or what have you. And yes, that's there too. But just for our purposes today, I want you to identify a self-limiting belief. So you don't need to pause the video, but I'll give you a moment now to do that, to just look over, the incident that you wrote about and to identify a self-limiting belief that you carried with you after that experience. Okay, and the belief should maybe be a sentence or something. It's a short thing, and so write that down if you haven't already. Okay, and still we're focusing on awareness. So I'm going to ask you for a moment to get clear on what that is costing you today in your life, what that belief, holding on to that belief, is costing you today in your life. So some examples might be if your belief is, the world is not a safe place. Maybe some of what that's costing you is not having intimate relationships, keeping secrets, not going for what you want or following your dreams in life, having trust issues with people, maybe withdrawing from people who want to be in relationship with you. If a belief that you identified is that, I'm not worthy, maybe some of what that's costing you is settling in your life. Maybe you're in relationships you don't want to be in, or you have a career that doesn't really fill you up inside, or you put yourself at the bottom of your to-do list. Maybe that shows up in terms of, overeating or, certain modes of acting out or acting in. So those are just a few examples, but there are a myriad of examples. So I want you to look at the belief or beliefs that you identified just now as coming out of the experience of the past, that story that, that did happen to you and that did happen in your life. And so now I want you to just look at the beliefs. And you're gonna pause this video in just a moment, and I want you to write for, again, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. You don't have to write a book, but maybe a paragraph or a few paragraphs about what the consequences of holding on to that belief are in your life currently, and what that belief is costing you today. And I want you to enter into this next writing experience without judgment. Really, we're just assessing. You're just looking at what is, so that we can work together to empower you to be able to move beyond where you might be stuck. So again, give yourself about 5 or 10 minutes and write about what that belief is costing you. Welcome back. So yeah, becoming aware of what the past, the influence that the past has in the present is really that is the key, critical first step to becoming open to change. And so wherever you are, no matter how stuck you feel in your life, I just want to remind you that the results that you're experiencing today are only a manifestation of the stories that you've been telling yourself in the past. And the minute that you start telling yourself new stories is the minute that the results that you experience in the future can begin to shift and change, and you can always evolve beyond your present circumstances. So if the beliefs that you have been carrying from your past experiences are costing you things today, know that you're exactly where you're supposed to be, and that we're gonna work together to shift you out of that. So the question now that I want you to ask yourself, and again, we're not gonna pause the video for you to do a whole writing assignment here, because there are still 2 more upcoming videos that are really gonna shift you out of where you are. But I do want to allow you to have a few moments for reflection. And I want you to think about, if you continue to hold to the beliefs from your past experiences, if nothing changes about what you believe, I just want you to become present to how your life in the future might end up looking. And I want you to name that, to give it a title, the same way that you kind of gave a framing title to the story in the beginning. I want you to give, a title to what your future life might look like if your beliefs don't change. So to give an example of what that might look like, if your experience, I'll use my own example again. So the experience of sexual abuse, I wrote the story about that. And then what I took away from that was the belief that I couldn't trust my own body. And if I had continued to hold to that belief that I can't trust my own body, or that my body had somehow betrayed me, what that would have looked like in my future would have been continuing with the eating disorder. It would have been never, experiencing self-love or experiencing the level of pleasure in my body that I do today. It would have looked like disconnection. It would have looked like a lot of things. But the title that I might have given that, that future would have been a future of body hatred. So see how I kind of like synthesize that? So I'm going to invite you to do the same thing. Look back at the experience from your past that resulted in this belief system that you've carried into today, and give yourself a title of what that belief system would look like or be if you continue to carry it into your future. So, again, maybe it's body hatred, maybe it's trustlessness, maybe it's a fearful existence. The possibilities are endless, but I want you to identify for yourself what your future, what you might name your future if nothing shifts, and write that down. Good. Okay. And then I'm going to invite you to think about if something about your beliefs were to change in a positive way. It doesn't have to be a huge shift, but just a shift. What might that future yield? So, for example, if I were to take my future of body hatred and just say, okay, if my beliefs just shifted a little bit for the better, like maybe it's, body indifference or body acceptance, or a future of an embodied future, or, being open. So again, the shift can really be thinking about whatever might apply to your specific situation. But I want you to ask yourself the question, if I were to have a shift in my belief system, what might that future be? And later on in the video, we're going to do some like really tangible writing about having a vision for yourself in your life. But I just want you to ask yourself the question right now, what opens up for me in terms of a future if I were to shift out of my existing beliefs? And I want you to give that a word. So maybe that word is possibility, or empowerment, or love, or truth, or the possibilities are endless. But I just want you to give that future, that different future, a word, and write that word down. Wonderful. Okay. Something else that can be really powerful in terms of the process of awareness is having a sensory experience. And for me, one of the best entries into my feelings has always been music. And I find that it's that way for a lot of the people that I work with and coach. And so I want you to choose a song. You're going to get to choose a song here that represents awareness for you. It can be a song that has roots in the past. It can be, any sort of song that really for you embodies or represents awareness, the practice of becoming aware of where you've been, aware of where you are, something that grounds you in the present moment. And before we break, before we take some time off, I want you to just think about what song might work for you. And there is no right answer. So whatever song comes to mind is exactly the song that's meant to come to mind. And I'm going to give you a little bit of homework between this first video and the second video, the upcoming video, which is I want you to take some time to play that song, maybe play it once or twice or 3 times through. But play that song for yourself, and I want you to write about all the things that you're aware of that maybe you haven't been thinking about or you've been pretending not to know, but all the things about your life and your past that you do know within yourself. and the answers that exist within you. Because the more aware you are, the more empowered you're going to be to move into the next step, which is acceptance. So again, thank you so much for joining me. Your homework, your takeaway is to find a song that roots you, that grounds you in awareness, to write about that, to give yourself a little bit of time to be proud of the progress that you made in just this first short part, and then to come back and resume this work so that you can move from where you've been into where you want to be. And again, thank you so much for doing this work with me, for trusting me to be part of your experience of transforming your story to transform your life. And until next time.